Welcome to South Asian Environment Dialogue. In this program, on behalf of Climate Channel, Canada, the Plurals, India, we discuss range of issues in South Asia. And today we are going to discuss an issue, not really an issue, I think an event, which is one of the signature event in South Asia globally now, to talk about climate change from various perspectives, scientists, researchers, technocrats, and you name it, and they have it. And this particular kind of event called Gobeshona Global is a Gobeshona conference, means Gobeshona in Bengali means research. So Gobeshona conference is a global conference, it's complete online conference, and it's a completely round the clock conference. What I am told that it's a conference which goes on for about 7 days and 24 hours in a day. So that's absolutely fascinating. And I really don't know there is any other example, not only in climate, but anywhere else in the world, which is having a conference which is going around the clock. And I have the person who has thought about it, who kind of made it possible. Professor Saleemul. Professor Hawk, welcome to the show. Professor Hawk, he needs no introduction, but still it's my responsibility to introduce him. Professor Hawk is one of the foremost climate scientists in the world right now. He's the director of International Center for Climate Change and Development, ICCCAD, which is actually organizing this conference, along with various other partners. He is also a professor in the Independent University, Bangladesh, and one of the strongest voices on climate change across the world, an advisor to the least developed countries, and recently being awarded by the Order of British OBE for his work in climate change. I think he has many more feathers. I need to stop here, otherwise I can't discuss other things. Welcome to the show. And,
thank you very much.
Professor Hawk, it's such a pleasure and privilege to know you so closely. Tell me this Gobeshona Global. What I am told, this Gobeshona conference started, I think, from 2014. But initially, it was a physical program. I think when COVID and pandemic hit us, you kind of changed it. But now we continue to do in a kind of an online manner. Please tell us, how is this conference?
Sure. So you're quite right. We started in 2014 now, almost 8 years ago, as a platform to bring together scientists, researchers, and others working on climate change, primarily in Bangladesh. So we have a website where we collect data and information. We have more than 2,000 publications in a searchable database. We used to do a monthly seminar of the researchers that was hosted by one of the organizations. We have more than 50 partner organizations, universities, research institutes, and others. And then we used to do a big national conference with some international participants once a year at my university in Dhaka, in person, several hundred people over 4 or 5 days. And it was sort of a traditional conference with lots of presentations and discussions and people interacting physically. But then last year, because of COVID, we could not do the in-person conference. So we decided to go entirely online. And since we went online, we thought, why not reach out to our friends across the globe and say, why don't you run a session? And we got such a great response. We ended up with around 90 sessions from all around the world. So we decided to run them 24 hours. So we did 3 8-hour cycles going with the sun, starting with 8 hours for the Asia Pacific zone, then 8 hours for the Africa and Europe zone, and then 8 hours for the Americas, North, South, and Central America zone, and then back again. And 7 days continuously. We were running it 24/7 in our control room in Dhaka, and my colleagues were all doing shifts, all-night shifts to promote and support these sessions. And it went tremendously well. We had sessions all the way from the Pacific and Australia and Japan to Southeast Asia and South Asia, and then Europe and Africa, and then in the Americas, North America and South America. A tremendous amount of response from different groups and organizations who hosted these sessions.
Okay.
So given that success last year, we decided to make this global conference an online global conference.
So you continue in the online
exactly.
mode.
So we are not going back to the old in-person format. We might do a smaller one for Bangladesh-based people, but this global one online, we are going to continue, and we are now starting it a little later in the year. We usually did it in January, but January is a bit too packed nowadays, so we moved it to March. It's the last week of March, starting on the 27th, and we will do 7 days, 24 hours a day. And we've already received, by the way, more than 80 session requests, and we are allocating them, and we are putting them into the program. It's on a OVA platform. We can share the website. It's free of charge. Anybody can join. Anybody can listen into any of the sessions they want to. And we will then be also sharing the recordings after the sessions are over.
So this year you are going to have about 80 sessions, or you are going to even have more than that?
So far we have 80, but we've got a few more requests. So if we accommodate them,
okay,
we'll probably reach 90.
I was going through the concept note and all of this year's conference, and I find that locally led adaptation is the key, and also you are tagging it with the COP27. So how you plan it out? What's your objective broadly?
Sure. So the Gobeshona conference has a theme. It's a regular theme. We focus on what we call locally led adaptation. And that's why connecting across the world with local adapters, there's adaptation going on everywhere. In Australia, in America, in Canada, they are adapting. And there are local groups who are adapting. And that's what we try to do, is to connect them across the world, learn from each other, share with each other. So the overarching theme is always locally led adaptation. And that's what we're looking for. Local adapters telling us what they're doing, sharing their experiences. Now, for this particular conference, the one in 2022 coming up in the next few days, the theme is connecting the local adapter's voice to global decision making, and particularly to COP27, which is going to happen in November this year in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh. So how do we get the voices of these local adapters into these global decision-making processes? We are asking each of the sessions to come out with a message for COP27. Do you have a message? If you have, what is your message? And then at the concluding session, we have very kindly been given time by the two COP champions, the COP26 high-level champion Nigel Topping from the UK, and the COP27 high-level champion Mr. Mahmoud from Egypt. They will join us live, and I will put to them these messages and say, how can these messages feed into the decision-making process in COP27? Not just going to COP and doing a side event, which a lot of people do, but side events do not go into the decision-making process. How do we get into the decision-making process? That is the challenge we are setting ourselves, and we are going to see how we can do that and if we can.
Okay. Say, when the last Gobeshona Global happened, I think in 2021, how that actually interfaced with the COP26? Did it have any interface with the COP26?
It did, and particularly with the various pavilions and hubs that were created in the COP. So during the COP26, you will remember there was the Resilience Hub,
right,
that had a very good,
very one of the kind of happening place in
excellent,
COP
excellent,
in Glasgow.
exactly. There was also a smaller one called the Locally Led Adaptation Hub, where events were also taking place. So many people who went to Glasgow were able to participate in these events, and even people who did not go to Glasgow were able to participate in a hybrid manner. They came in online. And this was very good. These are very good opportunities for being there, for networking, for sharing knowledge and experience. But what I argue is that while they were good at networking, they were not particularly effective in getting into the decision making. The decision makers were behind closed doors, as you know.
Right.
They were not coming to these events and listening
Absolutely.
to anybody. They were negotiating day and night. And so the question is, how do we get inside those negotiations and get our messages into it? And that's really the challenge that I want us to take up and see whether we can do that. I don't know if we can, but we are going to try.
So definitely it will be much stronger compared to what happened in Glasgow. I'll be coming to the COP linkage a bit after this query, but if you tell us a bit about the kind of sessions you are going to have, a kind of variety. I think it's amazing that you are already saying that 80 sessions are already being finalized. So there must be a huge amount of variety. So if you can talk us through few
Sure.
of the kind of stand out of them.
So let me share with you the various categories of sessions that we have. As we started originally as a Bangladeshi group, there are a big number of Bangladeshis who will want to participate. So there's a sort of a thematic group of Bangladeshi origin organizations and people who are doing sessions. And the opening session actually is a Bangladesh team. So we have the minister and the parliamentarians from Bangladesh and the government officials from Bangladesh opening. So we still retain a Bangladeshi ownership flavor of it,
Right.
although it's
Absolutely.
still a global conference. So we start with Bangladesh at the opening, and then we go to COP27 at the closing. And so we bridge the local to the global. Exactly. And then the sessions are in several categories, as I said. There are a number of thematic categories. People working in deltas, for example. There are a number of such groups. People working in mountains, number of such groups. People working in dry lands, some number of such groups. So there are a number of climatic thematic groupings, and these are global. So there are people in deltas from China, from Bangladesh, from Egypt, and so on. So connected across these different ecosystems. Then there are groups of local actors, local groups. So we have, for example, the Slum and Shack Dwellers International, Sheila Patel and her group in India, which is now a global group as well. So they have groups in Africa, Asia, Latin America. There are the waste pickers groups. They will be doing sessions. There are women's activist groups. They will be doing sessions. Youth is very big. We have lots of youth groups. They will be doing sessions. So different categories of people with common interests, either thematic in terms of ecosystem or work interests working together. And then we also have what we call networking sessions, which are to inculcate more collaboration. These are not presentation types. These are getting to know people, coming up with ideas, coming up with things that people can do together, which was one of the best results of having the in-person conference, where you meet people over lunch and over tea, and you get to know them, and you decide to let's do something together. That we lose here. So we try to have sessions that supports people interacting. And we have been able, since last year, to get some funding to offer grants, small grants, $5,000 grants to a group of people, not just one group, 2 or 3 groups collaborating. They come up with ideas, they pitch us, and then at the end, we will have a voting for the ideas that we get. They'll be on the HOVA platform. And then the best 5 will get the award of $5,000 each. And next year, they will have to come and report on what they did.
What exactly did you?
And part of it is they will get to go to COP27. So the fund will fund them to go to 1 or 2 of them to go to COP27 as well. And then at next year's Commissioner, they will present. So we will have a session that are presenting last year's grantees. They will be presenting, and we have already announced the application process for next year's grantees. So we will be announcing that at the end.
So that's a kind of a trigger that they have to really come up with good ideas.
Exactly.
Good ideas and
combined
ideas.
The most important thing is collaboration, not just tell us what you're doing and say, I want money to do what I'm doing. Come up with something we'll do with somebody else. And then the new group, 2 groups or 3 groups, they come up with something, and we want to support collaboration. It can be within the same country, it could be across countries, and we've done several across countries. And they work out. Nowadays, everybody's on Zoom, everybody can talk to each other quite well. And so we are encouraging that. We are trying to utilize the technology to our advantage.
Okay. And how you kind of plan to compile all this? Because I'm sure that you are saying 80 sessions, so the huge number of presentations, huge number of inputs, papers. Are you coming up with a kind of compiled paper, or what exactly you are coming up? What's the output?
Yes. So there are multiple outputs. First of all, each session will be recorded, and the video recording will be shared widely.
Okay.
Because what we have seen is that As you know, people, have time pressures. They cannot, even if they want to, they may not be able to join a session live. But later on, they may think, that's an interesting session. I would like to watch it.
Right.
So they're 1 hour, 1.5 hour sessions. People can watch in their own time, and we will track that. And we have seen in past that the post-session recording viewership is actually quite significant. So we will be publicizing them, letting people know about it, and then people can watch in their own time. They're not time sensitive, just if you miss it live, it does not really matter. You can watch it later. So that's the viewership of the session itself. Then each session, we have asked the session host to come out with a quick summary of what happened in that session. And one thing that they have to give us is a message for COP27.
Right.
So have a discussion about do we have a message for COP27? If so, what is our message? So we will then be collecting the messages for COP27. And as I said, in the last session, I will put these messages to the two high-level COP champions, COP26 and COP27, and say, how can you help us take these messages into the COP process, into the decision?
So all this will be compiled together, and finally, in final session, you will take it to the COP champions and try to kind of integrate with the decision-making process, whatever possible. So that's the structure. So, so nothing print is coming out. It's all being kind of.
Well, we're not going to print hard copies, but proceeding, the compilation of all the summaries that will come out soon after the conference. So there will be a proceeding.
Great, absolutely. And in here, I really would like to kind of bring you to the last working group report. That's the IPCC working group 2 report. You yourself were a IPCC author, I think, in the assessment report 3 and 4. You were part of that as a lead author and a coordinating lead author. This year, these IPCC reports are quite revealing, to say the least. Never before the scientists came out so strong in their language and their expression. And this working group 2 report, particularly about adaptations, talking about maladaptation, they're talking about soft limits of adaptation, hard limits, and even indicating that beyond the point, the option of adaptation may be lost altogether. So what's your take on that, and how really that kind of is in your mind when you are planning such a locally led adaptation project or program of such a scale?
It's very, very relevant, Jayanta, as you just pointed out. The working group 2 report of the 6th assessment that just came out a few days ago has made these points very, very clear. First of all, we are not adapting fast enough. We have to adapt much faster. Right. But there's also a very important second order message there, which you have pointed to. They have examined adaptation investments that have been made in the last few years, and they have found significant numbers are actually not doing any good. They are almost doing maladaptation. In other words, they're doing more harm than good. They're done with the best intentions, but they don't result in good results. So what do we learn from that, and why is that happening? So one of the reasons that has been very well documented is that the paradigm under which adaptation is now done is a very top-down paradigm. The so-called, I put air quotes around them, experts decide what is best, and they come and they tell people, this is what you have to do, and you do it, and then you will be safe from climate impact.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. They don't listen to the local people. They decide what is best for them, and therefore they don't result in effective adaptations. So one of the remedies is what we work on. We call it locally led adaptation. Listen to the people. Go and listen to them before you decide what to do. Listen to what they have to say, because they have a lot of experience. They are I call them the first adapters. Now that climate change is happening, they are adapting by themselves, by their own knowledge and experience. We need to capture that. We need to respect it. We need to use it. We need to bring them into the planning, into the design, into the implementation, and into the monitoring and evaluation as well. And that is what we are trying to do. We are positioning Gobeshana, the annual conference, now as a series of conferences, to take people to account. Everybody has said they're going to do it. Okay, so in Glasgow, there were two big outcomes. They said more money for adaptation, and they said, okay, more locally led adaptation. Let us see if they actually deliver. And we will use the Gobeshana conference to take them to task, to monitor what they are actually doing and seeing whether it's actually affecting local people, and hear the local people's voices. Let them say whether they are being affected, they are being helped. So far, they are saying they're not being helped.
Okay, and very interesting point that you just mentioned about the maladaptation and other things you pointed out. So when you are framing out this Gobeshona conference, you are looking at the proposals, you are looking at the presentations. Are you kind of conscious that this kind of maladaptations or the adaptations, which may be not really as good as it should have been, should be cut out, should be some kind of a hand-holding or counseling to be put through so that this kind of adaptation, despite all the good intentions, are not being pursued? So do you have in your mind about that?
Yes. So the very concept of locally led adaptation, the three words are not equally important. The middle word of led is the most important.
Right.
I demand anybody who is saying that they are doing locally led adaptation to show me the local leadership that you are supporting. I want the voices of the local leaders. I don't want you sitting in New York saying you have a 100 million program and you're doing this and doing that. Last year, I let them do that. This year, I said, I want the local voices. Where are the local people? And one of the issues with getting local voices, which I'm sure you're aware of, is that local people speak their own language. They speak Marathi or Bengali or Urdu or Swahili. They don't speak English or Spanish or French. And so they don't feel comfortable in these other languages, even if they might be able to speak a little bit. So we are now providing from the conference side translation for them. So we have told all our session holders, I want voices from the ground. And if they have a particular language they want to speak in, we will provide interpreters for them so that they can speak in their own language and they can also have the interpretation of other people who are speaking in English or other languages through the whole session. So they're not just coming for 2 minutes and give a little, we listen to them for 2 minutes and then we ignore them, but they are participating equally in the whole process. So the voices of the grassroots people is extremely important to us. And we are promoting it. We are getting everybody to tell us. And as I said, the demand from my side to every big organization that wants to tell us about their big program is you must bring the voices from the ground to tell us what they are seeing is happening. Not just tell us what you are doing or you are claiming to do, because we don't know what you are actually doing.
So you are saying that even in comparison to the last year, you are more and more promoting the locally led adaptation, the local voices, as you're saying. Finally, Professor Hawk, you mentioned about the money part of it, and you mentioned that despite in the Glasgow, they mentioned about more money in the adaptation, but still, there are thoughts going on that Global Adaptation Fund is still to do more. So what's your take on that? See, this locally led adaptation, these good examples, you said that you are being arranging fund for some of them, but if it could get more funds, then it could have been much useful for this local initiative to prosper.
Absolutely. So we have two, if you like, levels of our advocacy. The first level is now well accepted. Not enough money for adaptation generally, so more money for adaptation. And the developed countries promised in Glasgow, you remember, to double adaptation. But doubling the amount and then doing bad things with it is not going to help. You have to not only double, but you have to do it differently, spend the money differently. And as I said, one of the different ways to spend it is to make sure that it reaches the most vulnerable. That is your responsibility with the money. You, the people with the money, have to deliver that. You are not delivering it, by the way. You're very, very bad at delivering. That is established. Now, you accept that also. That is also accepted. Good. Now, how do you do things different? And that is what we are offering them. Ways to engage, listen, and then figure out how to support the actors who are on the ground. That is your number one opportunity and your number one responsibility. Not to think up from your own minds what is best for some place and then come with some money and tell them this is what you need to do. But to listen to the people in those places and then see how you can add value. Your job is to add value to what people are already doing. And people are already doing things. Okay, so by the way, we haven't talked about the fact that there is a limit to adaptation as well, and we are reaching that, and we are now having to face loss and damage as well. So we will actually have a few sessions that address loss and damage, although the theme is locally led adaptation, but loss and damage is unavoidable now. So we're going to have to talk about it as well.
So loss and damage will also feature with part of, so it's been tagged up with the adaptation.
That's right. So there are a few sessions that will specifically talk about loss and damage.
In fact, Professor, you just mentioned about that how the globally this adaptation being seen in the working group 2 report. If I'm not kind of wrong, the Bangladesh Delta Plan was talked about at a length, and it was shown as an example of how good adaptation measures should have been, or how a country should pursue about it. Your take on that?
Well, I think that Bangladesh can be proud of its planning process. You know, so we have our 5-year plans. We have the long-term Delta Plan. We are now coming out with a national adaptation plan and the nationally determined contributions. And we also have something called the Mujib Climate Prosperity Plan, a brand new Bangladeshi concept plan that is being developed. So I would say Bangladesh is well ahead of many other countries in taking climate seriously and trying to figure out how to plan our development pathways into the long term, taking climate into account. So that's a genuine recognition of Bangladesh's, being forward. Where we are less able to claim credit is implementing those plans.
Right.
We have them on paper, but in the implementation, it gets.
I think that's a subcontinent. That's a subcontinent syndrome. That's a subcontinent syndrome
everywhere. Exactly. So that is the challenge. How do we make it happen? In paper, we say we are going to do it, but then when it comes to practice, we are not so good at doing it, and that's the challenge. That's what we have to do better.
And finally, way forward. I'm sure that you and your team must be extremely excited. You were just saying before the program that you were being all putting up in the hotel and being kind of monitoring it, having the control room round the clock. So definitely it's a very exciting time. But down the line from 27th to 1st, what's the way forward? You said that you will be kind of interfacing it with the COP27, but any more specific pointers, any specific plans you have?
Sure. So first of all, let me say that we do not see these conferences anymore as just one-off events. Everybody comes together, we share knowledge, we have a good time, we say it was a very good conference, and then we go back to business as usual. We see these as a very important series every year at the beginning of the year, which is after the last COP, but well before the next COP. We will hold this conference every year online, and we will take stock. We will take stock of how are we doing globally in terms of implementing what we have promised to implement, which is to be better at supporting local adapters, local people. That is our criteria. Not so much how many millions somebody is spending, but what is it being spent on, and who is it going to, and are they actually benefiting from it? So we are ultimately judging the effectiveness by how many vulnerable people are involved and get access to the support system, whether they be knowledge support or they be funding support, either of them. At the moment, they are not being well accessed, but we want to promote that. So that's our niche of this.
You mentioned the word actionable research. I was reading your concept note. You mentioned the word actionable research. That's very interesting. That not only the research, the actionable one.
Exactly. So everything we do, we're a research institute, but we call ourselves not just a think tank, but a think and do tank. So we do action research. The research is normative. It is for a purpose. And our purpose is to support the most vulnerable people on the planet, the whole world. Bangladesh, obviously, South Asia, obviously, but whole world. And even in rich countries. Poor people in rich countries are also vulnerable to the effects of climate change. So this is a universal phenomenon. And so how do we conduct research, gather evidence, and network? The Gobeshona Conference is a networking opportunity. Once a year, we come together, we share with each other, we get to know each other, even if it's just, on a Zoom call, we can still make friendships and get to know people and promote that, what I call global solidarity of people working together in a common cause. That is what we need going forward.
I think absolutely wonderful, and really, really looking forward to an extremely, I think, important and successful Gobeshona Global Conference. And I'm sure that definitely ideas, robust, actionable ideas will come out of the conferences. I think 80 sessions, more than 80 sessions perhaps, you are going to have, and definitely there'll be important outputs will come out of it, and which will be interfaced with the COP27. I'm really feel keen to see how these actionable plans, how all these local voices can be integrated with the global voices and make sense at the global platform. Because at the end of the day, these global people are actually working for the locals. So I think great times ahead, and all the best for your conference. And we will be keeping a close watch. I'm sure that communication is an extremely important cog in the wheel. Good communication will perhaps help this message to put across and also link among this all the major players. And we'll be definitely trying our best from Climate Channel and the Plurals to help you out, to be part of this solidarity, to be part with you, to be with you in this endeavor. So we'll keep watching and definitely come back.
We see you as one of our partners. So we
sure.
welcome your inputs, your help with the communications, and then maybe after we are over, we can do sort of a
absolutely. I think after we are over, definitely we can come back in this Climate Channel. My colleague in Canada, Shanja, is definitely be looking at the closely many of the sessions, and then I think we can have some of the standout pointers from the conference, and if possible, with the help of yours, can take it further forward at the global platform in whatever we can. So thank you for your time, Professor Hogg. I know we're extremely busy 2 days from the conference, but still, thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayanta. Look forward to seeing you again. Bye-bye.
Birds are allowed to roam.
I think Representative
টরন্টো থেকে সবাইকে
কবিতা পাঠ ডেকে
What it pays for
শহীদ মিনার
be heard.
places to go in the city.
I play hockey.
Having a good
So what we choose to do is